nobody really ever thinks about the connecting to the offender part, but
Yeah, it is.
it goes back to what you always say about an identity crisis. A person that's abusing someone
Hmm.
absolutely does not know who they are.
It's a
If
fact.
they did, they would treat those they love better and they
Hmm.
would treat themselves better. That's crazy. And then you got to look at why they do what they did. Are they doing it
Yeah.
because are they a past victim of
Hmm.
physical violence or sexual abuse or like what? How do they get their healing?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because this the hold on. First, let's do it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Soul Rehab Podcast. And we have been pre-potted. And so we just decided to hit record because we was getting too far in the weeds with it. And
Yes.
so we might as well started using some of the information. And this month I want to kind of talk about healthy homes, and the driving force of this is because it's domestic violence month. And we want to shed light on that. We like to tend to talk about topics that are good for our souls and the rehab of our souls. And so we had got to this point in it, and we're probably going to start off in an unfamiliar territory because most people never talk about this part of it, but we've been led to talk about, and this is the Soul Rehab Podcast. So we talk about rehabbing our soul. And so the
Right.
one thing that you rarely hear people talk about is how we bridge the gap from the offender to the victim. And so we want to look at this from the offender point of view, right? At this to start off anyway, for sure, because what you find out with an offender is the one thing that the scripture tells us to love thy neighbor as we love ourselves. And most of the time, if you don't love yourself, it is going to be hard to love somebody else because you don't know what that
Mhm.
looks like. And so what we think and what we believe in offenders, there's something in them that they don't love. So either they was taught this by a parent who didn't that did it to them. They saw this in action, so it's something about the offender because it's my belief that we can get to the offender, then we have less victims. And so sometimes we have to reverse engineer things. And we are not taking anything away from victims. We love you.
Yeah,
If you need support and you need help, reach out to one of us. They got a numerous amount of domestic violence um, help that you can get. You can Google search it. Um, if you need somebody to help you walk through the process, I know for sure we'd be willing to help. But again, they
absolutely.
have people that do that too. But today we're just going to start off with that because it was just an interesting. I don't even know why it popped in my spirit when I was looking at some stuff. But it's like in order to stop something, you got to get to the root of it, and the
Absolutely.
root and the root of domestic violence is the offender. And so,
Absolutely.
how do we reach the offender? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh God. Whew. This I'm smiling, but this one is tough because I've told my
Yeah,
story. But
yeah.
I'm just in total agreement. Like you've got to get to the root, you said, and you've got to
Hmm.
figure out why this person is operating like this. Is
Yeah.
this learned behavior? Did they just see it? Are they a victim of it? What about
Hmm.
themselves don't they like? Do they have resentment towards parents? Um, are they stressed out in their life?
Right.
And I'm not saying any of this is an excuse because nothing
Right.
excuses.
Hmm.
Nothing for me excuses physical abuse, emotional, mental, none of that. There's no
Right.
excuse. But like we're saying, we're trying to figure out how do we get to the root of the problem, how we fix it, and then that way we'll have less victims.
Yeah.
It's, it's just, I don't know. It's mind boggling.
It is because I think we have a tendency to overlook the offender because the victim needs immediate help. And then what we tend to do with the offender is throw them to the side and not pay them any attention. And I think we do that sometimes because we don't want because we feel like they hurt somebody. We should address the person they hurt without addressing the hurt that they feel. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it's just like, I can't worry about you right now. I got to worry about them and getting them put back together. Most time, a lot of, even though women dish out a lot of verbal abuse, most physical abuse is done by men. They are women who physically abuse men, but most of the time men physically abuse women. And so we see that's something physical. That's something we can see because it impacts the mother. Most of the time they got kids, it impacts the kids. And so our first instinct is to deal with them. And we should, because they're going to most time be uprooted. They need to be somewhere safe because they fear for their lives or whatever. But we never go back to the offender most of the time and start trying to see why. Because again, just because you take this group of people out of the situation and that person, if they don't go to jail or if they go to jail and get out, how do we care for them? How do we acknowledge them? Because a lot of it is pain. With verbal abuse is somebody who probably experienced a lot of it most of the time. They've been told they want nothing, they won't never be anything, so they know it. They grew up in it. They learn to accept that type of environment. So even when they're in an environment where there's peace, they don't feel comfortable because they're more comfortable in dysfunction because that's what they grew up in. And so what I believe that does, it cultivates a feeling of it cultivates a feeling of I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy to be loved. Nobody cares about how I feel, so why should I care about how they feel? And so over time that develops, and you keep seeing it develops a pit of anger in you. And most of the time, if you never deal with anger, you're either going to implode or explode. And I think people explode when you experience domestic violence. Because I need somebody to physically take this out on. If you've been physically beat for no apparent reason as a child, nobody really talked to you. You got beat more than you got expressions of love. I mean, that stuff stores in you. And so you start to see love as pain. And so you think dishing out pain on others will show them that you like, I really love you. Like, I believe some demented and tormented way that people who do domestic violence really think that's an expression of love. And I think that's why even some women will sit and put up with it because they used to it and they will see it as love. And so we know that love doesn't hurt physically. It should not hurt. We should not be hitting on each other. But as an offender, like, I just know that all people ain't evil, and people that do bad things, all of them not evil. Some of them are just misled, have inner turmoil. Like I said, they have issues of the soul. And one thing about it, if you never heal the heart, you develop bitterness. And when you get bitterness, it is going to come out anyway. It can. And I think for a lot of people, that is the root of the domestic violence that they issue out on other people.
You started with verbal abuse, and I just want to touch on that just momentarily. I know a lot of the times we think that the verbal abuse is the yelling, cursing, but it's also the controlling aspect. It's the where you going. It's the who you with, how long you gonna be gone. It's the name calling, the belittling, going through phones and putting, like, I've known people that their spouses or mates have put trackers on their cars. They had no idea, like checking the odometer to see how far you've been, to see if you went to where you said you were gonna go. Like, I've seen some, and I've been in substance abuse and mental health for in and out for years. So I've seen and heard some of the craziest stories ever, but I just wanted to say, about that verbal abuse. Like, it's just not the yelling, the cursing. It's so many different aspects to that.
It is. I got it on the psychological violence, which is emotional abuse and stalking also. Because that's what you just talked about is really stalking.
Have you ever had a stalk? I've had a stalk.
Somebody trying to keep up with your every move, your mileage, and all that stuff. That's a stalker.
Yeah, somebody's watching your house, can tell you who came and went from your house, and somebody hiding in your bushes, and people go to the extremes when they want to control you. Pop-ups, stuff like that. Like, like, you hear that, you see that on social media a lot. Like, I'll pop up. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Right.
It goes back to what we always talk about. If I'm in a relationship with whomever, you should trust that when I'm out and about, I know how to conduct myself. And you should trust that I'm not gonna do anything to disrespect myself nor the person I'm with. So
Exactly.
that stalking, that's it's too much. It's too much.
And people look at that as love, and it ain't. You know what I
It's
mean?
not.
It's not love. It's a deep insecurity about who you are. Because really, so the scriptures say, "Love thy neighbor as I love thyself." So sometimes when you don't love thy neighbor, you really loving yourself.
Right.
And that's what I think you have to challenge yourself with, like stalking and going out your way to figure out what people doing and what kind of relationship is that. Like, that relationship has no trust, so it's not
None.
going to ever work. So if I got one of my models used to be, if I got to chase them, I need to replace them.
Absolutely.
Because the thing is if I got to worry about where you at every moment of the day, who you with, what you doing, it is torture. That is torture.
It is. It is.
And so,
and if we have to be in constant contact, like, yes, we have to communicate. That's healthy communication. But being in constant contact with somebody throughout the day, 24/7, is controlling.
Yeah. And it's the control is gonna cause anxiety in you. You do pop up FaceTime just to see where you at when you see if you answer. You're like, who does all that? Who has time to just sit there and just think about, I don't want to be with somebody that if that's a thought, I don't want to be with you, because eventually it's either going to drive you crazy, it's going to drive you to do something you ain't got no business doing.
It's going to manifest into rage, anger and rage. That's what it's going to do.
That is.
Absolutely.
And so you have to be careful with that. I think that's why we should never rush from relationship to relationship. We must give ourselves a set amount of time to kind of heal. Or actually, the reason why we don't heal is because we don't never reveal the things that we're going through. What we'll do is, we talk about this before too, the best way to get over somebody is get under somebody else, or get on top of somebody else. That is the most toxic thing.
It is. That is so toxic. That is so toxic and dysfunctional.
It is. And see, the thing is, if you're looking for a relationship, the relationship is the way we relate to each other. And so I'm not just looking for us to only to have sexual relations, because that's really, you can do that with anybody. But if I'm in a relationship with you, we should be able to that should be something we should relate to each other about. And if I feel like the only way I can control or keep you in a relationship is for me to always chase you, or for me to always check on you, or me to be like literally stalking you like every second of the day. I was telling somebody that song, I think it's an old song. Every step you take, I'll be watching you. Maybe it's Sting or somebody. But he actually, if you listen to the song, he talking about stalking somebody. When we used to listen to it and sing that message, like, he actually talking about stalking somebody. Like, that's nuts. Every move you make, every place you go, I'll be watching you. What? And so but what I'm saying is, a lot of people do that for a level of protection for their heart, because they've experienced some stuff and they're just tired of it. And so to me, when you get tired of it, instead of doing that, it's time to go to counseling. We are in a time that counseling is commonplace. You don't have to be crazy to go to counseling. No matter what somebody taught us back in our past, counseling is a healthy thing. You need counsel. And if you can't afford a counselor, get around people with some wisdom that can help correct and direct you in the right ways that you need to go. Find somebody to talk to. You need to get that stuff out.
That's it. That's one of the problems, though. You said something about not jumping from relationship to relationship. But even people, when they are in a single season, they don't actually work on themselves. They just still carry and harbor the same hurt, the same bitterness, the same resentment. Like, you've got to get somewhere at some point in your life and sit down and work on yourself. You just have to. And like you said, if you can't afford counseling, then you need to reach out. Like we offer. Every time we get up here, we offer ourselves to people. You know, and I know it's easier for women, so let me speak
Mm-hmm.
to the men. Tyrone is here. They have MOP. Like, there are men out here that are willing to sit with you and have a conversation. They don't even have to talk. They will listen to you, let you get it out. You know, I call it the brain vomit. If you need to vomit,
Mm-hmm.
there are people out here who will hear you out.
Yeah.
No, like a judgment-free zone. But you've
Mm-hmm.
got to get somewhere and sit down
Yeah.
and take the time to work on you. You got to. It's a must. Or everything, you're going to keep carrying this, and every relationship you get in is going to fail.
Yeah. And this is the other part of that too, is that if you never deal with it, you're gonna always attract the same people.
Yes.
And that's what you
Absolutely.
have to work on. Like I believe that there's a you if you don't deal with your trauma, um, your whatever you've been dealing with just continues to follow you. And so it's kind of like um I don't know what word I want to use, but it's kind of like bait, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if it's you go fishing, you use different bait considered for the fish that you want to capture or catch. So what you do when you don't heal is you still using the same bait, expecting a different result. And so you have to realize, like, man, this what I'm doing is not working.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't never feel comfortable in a relationship. I don't feel safe in a relationship. A relationship you should feel safe in.
Absolutely.
We don't. And so you'll get in a relationship and then and this is the other thing. Everybody, some people may have experienced this and some people may come to this. And the one that come to it is because their heart is hurt and it's broke and they're doing something they think to protect their heart. And so sometimes we have to have the heart for the offender also, which is what we basically talking about. It's like, I don't think people religiously start out as being evil. I think that's a breaking point. And when all of us have reached a breaking point. And most of the time when you reach a breaking point, violence is one of the first things, either violence against yourself or
Mm-hmm.
violence against the people that hurt you. And so it's like a natural response. And I believe that's what bitterness does in our heart. And so you have to stop. You need to sit down. You need to counsel. You need to talk to somebody. You need to have the vomit session to get this stuff out. Now, with me, with vomit session, you get about 2 or 3. And then if you want something else, you're going to get some instructions.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't going to vomit.
Absolutely.
You ain't vomiting every time we talk.
That's
That's not
right.
going to work. You're going to get some instructions after about 2 or 3. But it does help to get it out. Because then sometimes when getting it out, it's not inside. So when you speak it, you're able to start learning to articulate. You start noticing the signs. You start being able to tell people how you really feel. And when you're able to tell them how you really feel, because even though our emotions shouldn't be leading us, we should be aware of them. That's something as a man that I just strive to do. And I strive to have other men learn to be aware of their emotions and not suppress them. Suppressing is one of the worst things that you can do.
Absolutely.
Men, don't suppress your feelings. I know society may have you thinking that men should not have emotions. That's a lie. Because if you don't have emotions, then you will not know how to love people properly. Can't. So that's
You
why
need
you
to
able.
love yourself properly. We can't
Yeah.
express your emotions.
It's a trick, but most men think they supposed to turn them off. And it's okay if you turn your emotions off. Love, part of love is an emotion. There's an emotional part to love. Shouldn't be the main part, but there is an emotional part to it. And so that's why you have a problem connecting with your wife. That's why you have a problem connecting with your kids. That's why you have a problem connecting to your friends like you should, because you have turned your emotions completely off because you've been told as a man that it's wrong to have emotions. And so that's why men, they get angry. They react with violence. That's natural for a man. Like men, when they talk, they ain't gonna be a whole lot of arguing or nothing. Most of them gonna go ahead, we're gonna fight and get it out because that's natural to us. And so you will tend to carry that tendency on in a relationship with a female or your kids. And so you can't do that. So we need to be in tune with our emotions, just not led by them as men for sure.
Absolutely.
So I really think we brought some attention to the offender. And like I said, we don't want to leave off the victims. We're not trying to, that's not our goal.
Mm-mm.
the goal is for us is to try to kill it at the root. If you get the root, you don't have the fruit.
Absolutely.
So we need to talk to it. And as an offender, if you have experienced that, you can't be ashamed to talk to somebody about it. You know what I mean? Like we'll develop a shame for stuff because we don't want to tell people the things we struggle with. And I'm not saying you can tell everybody, but that's why in therapy, that's why somebody you can trust. Hopefully somebody who knows enough about Christ to help give you some biblical expertise or biblical wisdom also. But don't be afraid of that thing, man. Don't, because it's not normal. We don't want you to think it's normal. We want you to be able to release it. We want you to be able to talk freely about it so you can heal from that thing. You may have victimized 3 or 4 women, but you can stop at the last one you're done and you can start back over. This thing can be fixed. There is a redemption factor about Christ. And that's why I love him so much.
Mm-hmm.
Redemption can be, and you can't fix the wrongs that you have, but you can build from where you at. You can go get the help and you can understand why you're doing it. And then you can go and apologize to the people that you have hurt before. They may not accept it, but you say, I'm sorry. I know it might not mean nothing to you, but it means something to me. I want to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I just didn't know what I was doing. I didn't exactly know it was wrong. And so we want you to know that you can be redeemed. Don't let your last experience or the last thing that you did wrong define who you are, because God loves you. That's not the you that God created. That's the you become through circumstances or broken hearts, family experiences, bad relationship experiences. And that's not you. And that even stands for the victim too. You're not a victim. You're not a victim.
I say it right now, from victim to victor, honey. I'm the victor regardless, honey.
And that's the thing.
I got my own healing, honey.
Yeah.
You just can't stay a victim, and you cannot live with that victim mentality. Because it makes you feel less than. And then, like you said before, you'll always make excuses. You'll make excuses for people. Like what you allow is what will be. And if you keep a victim mentality, then that's what you'll always be, a victim. So when you'll keep going through these bad relationships, or you'll keep, like you said, you'll keep attracting these same type of people and all of the above. Like, you've got to become the victim at some point.
Yeah. And so with you and your experience, what really made you decide, like, look, I need to go get some help. Like, this ain't working.
I think for me, it was the fact that the depression and the suicidal thoughts. Like I've shared before, I was working in Rocky Mount, and I could just remember thinking, driving out, I could drive off the bridge, it'll be over. I could pull in front of this truck, it'll be over. Right. I even said that I used to pray and ask God to just let me die in my sleep. Thank God he didn't. Thank him for this good and merciful self that he didn't. But that's how bad it got for me. Like, I just didn't want to be here. I didn't want to exist, and I didn't want to tell anybody. I think that's a part that I know it's for a lot of victims. Like, you don't want to tell anybody, and this is the crazy part. It's not always that you don't want to tell people because you're ashamed of you're ashamed of what's happening. You don't want to tell people because you don't want them to think bad of the person who's victimizing you.
And that is crazy.
But you know what that is?
It's the truth.
That's the truth. That's the mercy that you have for others. And if you got that mercy gift in you, it's crazy. But I'm telling you, I know what I'm talking about. I'm speaking from experience. Like, you don't want to say anything.
That is so true.
It is, absolutely.
It's crazy that you would want to protect your offender. So you take the abuse. I think
it's partly because you still hope and you pray that they'll change somehow. Like Lord, just like work a miracle in them, and they'll change. And then if you tell somebody, then
you know how they gonna feel, and,
yeah,
and they gonna make it hard for you to, you know what I'm saying?
yes.
Like they gonna start hating somebody that you love, and you don't want to say nothing.
You don't.
Wow, that's very interesting, and that is part of trauma bond. That's what that does. It's a unique dynamic, and the bad thing about it is, I say probably, I go lower, 80% of 75% of the time, you don't realize you're doing that until you out.
Yep.
That's the crazy part about that.
Yep.
You don't realize what you're doing until you out and you distance yourself. And I think really when you get out and you distance yourself, I think you really see, oh my God. I think you really see how much you've been abused. And then you start feeling the way about yourself and shaming yourself because, man, I know better. I'm smarter than that. Ain't no way this should have been happening to me. And so then whatever was already tore down, you start stripping yourself all the way down. And that's when you get depressed. That's when them suicidal thoughts come in, because it's like there's a level of shame on you. Like, man, I let myself go through this. Me? You know what I'm saying?
Allow this. And like you said, I know better. And then, we cool, but we pretty tough. Like,
yeah.
I don't really let somebody treat me like this. Like me. Right. Man.
Maybe
you
then,
really
but
beat
me?
yourself up. Like, me? Oh gosh, yeah. That's so true. Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what part of my depression was, is the fact that, like, I can experience something like that. I seen, ain't no way I can experience or go through something like
that thought, especially like, growing up or a teenage to young adult use, like you see people go through stuff and you be in your mind, you be thinking that could never be me. Right. I already know what I'm going to do, but you can't never say never, because until you get in it, honey, you don't know what you're going to do. You have no idea.
Because you don't really know what it looks like. And when you don't have a true grasp on your identity and who you are, people, and I don't know if it's them or what's working through them, so I will say that. Let me say that. But what they do is they don't, and this is the thing about being a Christian, you ain't got to beat nobody across the head with the Bible, because what they do is it's the little things. And then the little things just start molding you and shaping you. Or, well, maybe I did look at this wrong. Or maybe I am a little controlling, or maybe I am not the nice person that I think I am. You know what I'm saying? And like, maybe it's me. But they start doing these little things, and they start shaping and molding you into
little things, but it consumes you so fast.
Yeah. And
you caught up in it and you don't realize it. And like you said, you don't really truly realize until you really get out of it. And you was like, dang, like that. It just, well, I'm telling you, it knocks your feet.
It does, because it's like,
knock your feet.
And really, basically, that part of it that's really, I think, is a diagnosable narcissism. I don't think it's narcissistic traits. And I think some people can have traits, but I think that's actually what narcissists can do. Because it's subtle and you don't realize it. And then you'll start questioning yourself about things that I've never really had anybody say that about me.
Right.
I ain't never heard that about
only me. That person has said that about me.
Yeah. But you in love and you want to make it work. And then this is the other thing. You know that you're not perfect. And so you want to get better. And so you want to learn how to love the person you with. And so you'll start taking that stuff to heart. And then after a while, it'll be your whole identity. That's what I'm saying. You don't never realize how bad it is until you completely out. Yep. I was shocked when I went through that. And I'm like, boy, ain't no way.
Oh, gosh.
Me?
I'm better. I'm still healing. But I'm still embarrassed that I allowed myself to go through something like that.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing. And that's why, a lot of times with me, I try to speak on it because I think men don't think they can be experience domestic violence. I know, like I said, most of the time you don't hear the physical, but the verbal and the psychological is something that we kind of go through. And a lot of times we, even with, they have women that say, you need a man up, and so even stuff like that, it can be a crawl in the man's, like an insult. Like, man, you need a man up. Like, not coming, you don't want to hear that mess coming from your woman. She need to have a different way of saying that stuff. But a lot of times it's verbal abuse is what it is. You know what I'm saying? You'll be mad if a man say you can't cook, or you need to learn how to cook better. And if he said it in the kind of way, or they'll be mad because then we insult them. But they'll turn around and they do stuff like that.
Eat some sandwiches every day with some
yeah. Girl, go to TikTok and watch one of them TikTok food channels and learn